As I look out on the group gathered here today to remember Sarah, a.k.a. Sweetie, Mom, Madame, Aunt Sarah, Coach, Concierge, Waddy, or even, as kid, Muscles. I see two distinct groups clearly. I see Sarah's husband, daughter, son, her mothers, her fathers, her brothers and her sisters, her cousins, and yes, her nephew over there playing with the balloons in the trash can. Then, when I look out further, I see her beloved students, her esteemed colleagues, her alumni friends, her staff, and all of her friends, both old and new, from all walks of her life. We've had people travel from such places as New York and Boston to be here today, and as close by as Sebastopol. We as a family want to thank everyone for coming and showing your support. We truly appreciate it, and you have all helped us through this very difficult chapter in our lives. In keeping with what Sarah would have wanted in the celebration of her life, I also want to thank everyone for looking so fashionable and so damn good. You ladies out there, wow, fabulously fashion forward, just as she would have done, right? And fellas, you're looking okay. Even I straightened my tie and pulled up my pants for this occasion. Oh, man. She would be so proud, of course. From this moment on, we as a family are forever linked to you, the Trojans of Petaluma High. Madame loved this school, its student, faculty, staff, and alumni, so we as immediate family consider you a part of our family. Thank you for all that you gave her. Madame lived more in 51 years than most people do in 80. Yeah, that a baby. Giddy up. Now we're talking. I know she gave new meaning to the word multitasking. You can verify this just by thinking about her accomplishments here at Petaluma High. It makes my head spin, but here we go. Educator for 26 years. Petaluma High School Teacher of the Year for 2011. And I'm going to try and get through these next 7 without applause, so bear with me. Chairman of the Foreign Language Department, WASC Coordinator, Site Council Coordinator, Peer Assistance and Review Coordinator, Prom Coordinator, and Girls Tennis Coach. In addition, as if that wasn't enough, she created opportunity for students to travel out of state and even out of the country to pursue their intellectual interests. As an educator, she managed many different moving parts very well, and that is obvious from her accomplishments. This multitasking carried over to her family life as well. As an example, my phone rang at 7:45 a.m. one weekday morning. It was Sarah on the other end of the line as she was driving Cole, her son, to school. This was a normal weekly call just to see what was going on with me, except this morning was a little bit different. A few minutes into the call, she said, "Hey, Uncle Johnny, hold the line a second. I need to speak with the policeman that just pulled me over." I then pictured her with the blue lights flashing in her rearview mirror, in her high heels, elegantly dressed like a Parisian fashion model, smelling like French perfume, looking like the furthest thing from a Sebastopol farm girl. I heard the door open, and as she got out of the car, she said, "Hey, boys." Not more than a minute later, she was back in the car, speeding towards school again, and said, "Sorry, bro, I just had to get out of a speeding ticket." And with all due respect to the police department here in Petaluma. Please consider this story for 1 second. In that moment in time, she was driving to get her son to school on time, ensuring that she herself was in her own classroom on time, talking on the phone, trying to catch up with her bro in San Diego, and getting out of a speeding ticket all at the same time. In other words, she was being a good mom, teacher, citizen, kind of, sister, all simultaneously. Now that is what I call multitasking. Sarah Wadsworth was the glue that held our collective family together. When it comes to Petaluma High School family, there are many stories that reflect her as the glue that kept students, parents, teachers, and alumni connected. Whether on the tennis court or in the classroom here at Petaluma, she was famous for her pep talks. "Come on into my classroom, it's time for a pep talk," I could hear her say. While these pep talks were challenging, confrontational, direct, and emotional at times, I am sure they helped whomever she was speaking with get back on track by effectively gluing that individual to a higher standard. This was the same when it came to immediate family matters. She brought us together by planning trips to see my brother perform in plays in Seattle and in Phoenix. She would rally the family for many a family holiday and vacation. Her nickname became the concierge. And it came from the ideal that a family vacation was not just sitting in a hammock around a body of water, wearing a straw hat and having a drink with an umbrella in it. Of course, she brought it to a whole new level and planned out every hour of every day before we even got there. We would receive a timeline agenda in our email inboxes weeks, if not months, in advance, as she wanted us to commit to at least 2 planned activities per day. Undoubtedly, this glue that was Sarah brought me closer to her, my niece, my nephew, my brothers, my sister, my father, and my mother, and for that, I am truly grateful. I imagine at times that she helped you, the Petaluma High School community, become closer and more tightly knit, effectively being that glue that held you together. She did more encouraging than anyone I know. In fact, I know that it was her way of giving back to her community, family, and friends. Whether it was giving pep talks to students and athletes, working with their fellow faculty members to develop the highest possible educational standards, or helping her immediate family and friends navigate through life's speed bumps, she was always rapid to share positive encouragement. She even encouraged herself to develop new lesson plans each and every single year because she wanted her classes to be the best and the most cutting-edge education she could offer to her students. It was Winston Churchill who said, and I'm not sure if Sarah even liked Winston Churchill, but he said, "If you are going through hell, keep going." I feel like my sister's passing could be that hell, and could be one of those moments where it could be easy for me and us to just stay down and mope around and be bummed out for the rest of our lives. But then I think about what she would have done. As you all know too well, she would have stood up, dusted herself off, learned from what had happened, and moved on to accomplish bigger and better things. So here I stand today, encouraging you to join me as a representative of our family in standing up. Yep, I mean stand up. Dust yourself off. Turn to your neighbor and, if appropriate, give a hug, a kiss, a handshake, something along those lines, all right? So I would like to read an epitaph that I feel represents my sister well, and it's entitled Epitaph by Merritt Malloy. When I die, give what's left of me away to children. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother, walking the street beside you, and when you need me, put your arms around put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live on your eyes and not on your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies. For love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, please give me away.
My first year as principal was in 1986. Sarah had been aboard here for about 2 or 3 years. She was teaching drama, English, and French. Her passion was French. She wanted to build a strong program based upon language acquisition and cultural assimilation. Along with her dear friends Andre and Wendy from Aix-en-Provence, Sarah launched an exchange program between her American students and what she called lovingly the Frenchies. Sarah came to me and said that it was her expectation that I would participate in the exchange program. Have you ever seen the look of the cobra? I experienced that moment. With the fear that something terrible would befall me if I didn't participate, I said yes. The next day, Sarah came to me and said that I had the privilege of hosting the headmaster of the school, Francois, and his wife, Chantal. They were from the School of the Sacred Heart in Aix. I said, Sarah, my wife and I don't know French. She said, don't worry, they don't know English. You should get along fabulously. That was the beginning of a wonderful program that has created many lasting moments for all of us who had the good fortune of participating in it. Madame loved her students and did everything within her power to make them develop a love not only for the language, but also for the culture of France. She was a wonderful teacher, a wonderful coach, and a great colleague. She had a presence that would light up a room the moment that she came in, and would also light up a meeting. As was stated in the most recent copy of the Trojan Tribune, she was a class act. She truly was. Madame, thanks for the memories and the pleasure of your company as a colleague at Petaluma High School. You will be sorely missed. You and your family will always be a part of Petaluma High School. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for coming here to honor and remember my friend. I've always been a believer that all things happen for a reason, but I have to be honest with you. I'm having a very difficult time coming up with a reason for this. What are we supposed to understand from this? What are we supposed to learn? Perhaps it is that life is so transitory that nothing gold can stay. But Frost's words do nothing to console. They simply state a fact of life. We all know that nothing lasts forever. But when a life is so meaningful, when it is being lived with such passion and conviction, and when the life impacts so many other lives, when it changes so many lives in such a positive way, the fact that it is cut short seems to make no sense at all. Sarah's life indeed changed my life. 22 years ago, Sarah was on the interview committee that hired me. I have no doubt that without her seeing something in me that might have made a good teacher, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to teach at Petaluma High School. But her influence certainly did not stop there. I can say without hesitation that she made me the teacher I am today. The example she set, while intimidating, was challenging and inspirational. She made me want to be the best that I could possibly be. As a friend, Sarah's life changed my life. Some of my most cherished memories are with her as we ran with our babies, Jordan and Dante, in jogging strollers, or chatted with one another between reps at the gym. Last winter, Sarah, Kathy Warren, Lindsay, and I went to a Lady Gaga concert. And later that spring, I even managed to talk her into a trip to Las Vegas. She wasn't so sure about Vegas. There were too many Hawaiian shirts, sandals worn with socks, and fanny packs to suit her taste. But after a private table at one of the top clubs in Vegas, which included our own personal bodyguard, meals at 5-star restaurants, and a private cabana by the pool at Caesars, she was convinced that this should be an annual trip. I couldn't have agreed with her more. But there will be no more Gaga concerts or trips to Vegas with her. There will be no more power walks up Warrington or long talks about the changes we would make in education if we could. There will be no more dinners together or diets we're going to go on, chats on the phone, or fashion consultations. These are gone. Her physical presence has departed. But if there is one thing I know for sure, she is not gone. Sarah has left a legacy that we can only hope to achieve. I look around me and I see Sarah times hundreds. In each of us lives a memory of her, and for many of us, we will hear her voice encouraging us to strive for excellence, scolding us when we're lazy or complacent, or telling us she believes in us and knows we can do it, even when we think we can't. I hear her voice in the words of Henry Scott Holland. Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away into the next room. I am I, and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. Call me by my old familiar name, Speak to me in the easy way which you have always used to. Put no difference in your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh like we always laughed at the little jokes we enjoyed together. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without effect, without a trace of shadow on it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. There is an unbroken continuity. Why should I be out of mind because I am out of sight? I am waiting for you, for an interval somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well, nothing is past, nothing is lost. One brief moment and all will be as it was before. How we shall laugh at the trouble of parting when we meet again. I truly believe that we will see Sarah again. She'll probably be running the place when we do. But until then, we have her memory. We hear her voice. I look out at all of you, and I realize that there is something to be learned from her sudden passing. She has left us a very clear message, one that wouldn't be as clear if she hadn't left in such a hurry. We matter. Our lives matter. Our family and friends matter. And we should never settle for mediocrity or complacency. We have her example to follow. Let us strive for excellence, have faith in each other, and live our lives as fiercely as she lived hers. À bientôt, cher ami. Je t'aime.
May the road rise to meet you. May the winds be always at your back. The sunshine warm upon your face. The rain fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God, may God, may God hold you in the palm of His hand. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord cause His face to shine upon you and give you peace. May the moon rise to meet you. May the winds be always at your back. The sunshine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God, may God, may God hold you in the palm of His hand. May God hold you in the palm of His hand.
Bonjour. That was the greeting that I shared with Sarah every morning before school, back and forth. And every morning after I said my bonjour, she would tell me, Frankie, you really must work harder on your pronunciation. I taught math here for many years, And for close to 20 of them, I was right over here in the end of C Wing, right across the hall from Sarah. I was very privileged to be across from a very dedicated and special teacher, and this proximity allowed us to become very good friends. We like to refer to our part of the campus here as C Wing West. It was an exclusive piece of real estate where the teachers were just a little bit better. The students were just a little cut above the rest. Everything was just a little above average there. There was never a doubt that Sarah was the kingpin of C Wing West. I guess that would be queen pin. All of us around that area know that Sarah had her eye on us, and students and teachers alike better shape up. If one of us played a movie too loud, or let a student wander the hall, we were going to hear about it. It was not going to be pretty. One incident was Sarah and I are standing in the hall, and a big burly student, we didn't know who he was, walked by and had the audacity, pardon my coarseness, to spit on the wall in C Wing West, of all things. I know there's going to be a confrontation, and I'm thinking about how I'm going to approach this guy, but I don't have a chance. Sarah is right in his face immediately. How dare you? Who do you think you are? How dare you do this to our school, especially to C Wing West? I thought, I better just stand here and see how this goes. This is going to be quite a standoff. Well, he thought about his actions, what she should do. The next thing I know, he says, I better clean this up. So she takes him, gets some paper towel, brings him back, and I've got this clear vision of Sarah with her hands on her hips, staring down at this kid while he's on his hands and knees scrubbing this stuff off the floor. And that was Sarah. Being across the hall from Sarah was not a job for wimps. It came with a lot of responsibility. I tried to convince Sarah that I received an extra pay stipend for putting up with her. As you know, Sarah held nothing back when it came to her feelings, and most days she would arrive at school with a fair amount of angst. I was kind of an early bird, so I would always be at my desk when I would hear the unmistakable clopping coming down the hall. It was a long haul. It lasted a while. I learned to read the rhythm of her gait. If it was sort of upbeat, I'd think, well, I'll get a couple of bonjours and back to work. But if it was especially fast, or even worse, if it was really slow, I knew that there was a story in my future. I have fond memories of her popping into my door, looking kind of frazzled, a bag of schoolwork hanging over her shoulder. It was a Gucci bag, no doubt. With a story of a traffic jam, a disagreement with a family member. By the way, I realized there were always two sides to that story. Or worst of all, someone had parked in her parking place. And never mind if I was busy or if I was talking to someone else, she jumped in mid-sentence and her story took precedent over all. Which reminds me, John, I have a traffic ticket story too. One of those mornings, in the door she is, Frankie, you can't believe what happened to me. I dropped Jordan Cole off at Valley Vista. The traffic is backed up. I'm late. I get in front of the school. It's crowded. I finally get almost to my parking place, and I get pulled over for speeding. I can't believe he didn't let me off. I can't believe that either, sir. So, how fast were you going? 45. You know, in front of the school that time in the morning, there's parents dropping off, there's school buses in and out. I don't see how you could possibly go 45 miles an hour. And she, of course, maintains that she was not. Well, I said, well, could you tell me you're just trying to get to work? What did you say to him? He said, well, the first thing I told him is he's got to take off those damn sunglasses or I'm not even going to talk to him. So it seems that he wasn't in the mood to let her off after that. I was talking to Bob Jones the other day, who taught with her in her department for many, many years, and he was reflecting back on when Sarah was hired. Many of us probably don't know, she was hired like in spring or winter break, in December or so. And she was hired, apparently there was a new teacher that had been hired to teach a bunch of really difficult English classes. And they were really giving this guy a hard time, at the point where he finally quit at winter break. So Sarah, for some reason, happened to be available during that time. Thank you, sorry. And so they hired Sarah, and needless to say, those classes were shaped up within a couple of weeks, and no one had any further problem with them. Shortly after that, she took over a French program, and the French program was certainly okay. But now, it was going to be to a whole new level, actually, a whole different galaxy of education. She and I spent a fair amount of time teasing each other, but in reality, I'll admit I was always in a bit of awe of her. I think the entire faculty and staff felt this way. When she spoke at a meeting, we listened. When she didn't speak, we wondered what she was thinking. And I think her students felt the same way. Her students responded to her enthusiasm and dedication, and she was certainly capable of employing gentle intimidation. Maybe not so gentle. She worked tirelessly in class, always on her feet, always interacting with students. I'd often try to pop in during a break, during tutorial or lunch for a visit, and invariably she would be face-to-face with a student going over details for some assignment. I couldn't get the time of day from her. Even recently, I tried to stop in to say hello since I've retired, and even though we were really good friends, even though I may not have talked to her in months, she'd give me a quick wave, but would not break stride with her students. It was obvious to them and to me that they came first. I know her students completed her assignments, in part because they were afraid not to. At any rate, there is no doubt that her students experienced the ultimate in a French program. The students who stuck with her, and many did, partly because they were afraid to drop. It's true, isn't it? They became totally fluent in the English language, French culture, did I say English? French language, French culture, and the French lifestyle. After 4 years with Sarah, her students could easily walk the streets of Paris with the comfort and confidence of a local. My friends Steve and Linda Ellison's son, Scott, graduated about 1998, I believe. Yeah, L. Scott, all right. He was one of Madame's protégés. Is that a French word? He went to UCLA. He majored in econ, I think, marketing econ, but he liked French. He took a French class, and he tells us it was the easiest class he had at UCLA. He tells a story about in one of his upper-level French classes there. The class was assigned a book to read, and the class was grumbling about how difficult this assignment was, what a difficult book it was. Well, it turns out he had read it in Sarah's class as a junior in high school. It was not a problem. Because of Sarah's program, Scott went on to obtain a minor in French, partly because it was just so easily and acceptable and available to him. Being the French teacher was not always easy for Sarah. We had times of declining enrollment, reduced budgets. Her sometimes small class sizes were a burden to the counseling department and an annoyance to her colleagues. Sarah always had to fight hard to preserve all 4 or 5 levels of her French program. It was unacceptable to her to deprive her students of advanced course content, even if the numbers were small. She made frequent visits to Petaluma Junior High to promote her course and to recruit students if possible. That's something most of us never had to do. One thing she did not do was compromise the quality of her program. She would never consider lowering her high standards as a way of increasing her enrollment. And she taught just as hard in a class of 15 students as she did in a class of 32. And yes, she did have some classes of 32. She did everything she could to make her program attractive to students, working all the angles to get the best equipment and resources available. We all know that Sarah was tenacious, a fact that I'm sure caused our principals some long confrontations, And more often than not, Sarah got her way. Once we all got 27-inch TVs. Suddenly, Sarah had a 60-inch behemoth. You guys remember that? This was before the days of flat screen. This is a big, fat monstrosity that took up a major corner of her room. She said, "Frankie, come look at my TV." And she talked site council into buying it. I said, "How'd you do that?" She said, "Well, I told them I show a lot of French videos in class. And the big screen is necessary because otherwise the students can't read the subtitles." And I thought for a minute, I said, "Sarah, if your kids speak as good French as you say, why do they need subtitles?" And she said, "Oh, please don't tell site council that. Besides, the U.S. Open tennis starts next week." We all got basic cable in our rooms. Suddenly, she had her own satellite dish. Apparently, she needed to get the Parisian newscast in her room, which I think might have included skiing conditions also. There came a time when it was decided that we should share classrooms. Prior to this, we each had our own classroom, and then during our prep period, we had a private room, an office to work in and get stuff done. Is pretty nice. But the decision was made that it would be more efficient for teachers to move around and teach in these classrooms and keep them full all day long. Well, Sarah's room seemed to be always immune to this idea. Her room, no way was she going to share her room with somebody. I think our boss figured that some battles just aren't worth fighting. We all griped, "How come Madame never has to share her room?" But I think we all knew that just was not going to happen. And to force that issue would create undescribable havoc on all of us. It has been my honor to speak with you about my friend Sarah. To all of us who knew Sarah as a good friend and mentor, this is certainly beyond sad. Her abrupt removal from our lives causes us all to remember that nothing is guaranteed, that every day is a gift. It suddenly does not seem cliche, but instead serves as a final lesson to us from a gifted teacher. As difficult as this is for me, I can't imagine how it must be for Greg, Jordan, Cole, for Sarah's parents, siblings, and relatives. To all of Sarah's family, I wish you to know that we all miss Sarah so much. And while we are here to grieve for her and find comfort in each other, we are also here for you. And we hope this gathering provides a measure of comfort for you. We know that somehow you will proceed from here, and we offer you all the support we can possibly give. Thank you.
Sarah's death was such a shock. I don't know about you, but I never thought of Sarah Wadsworth as a mere mortal. The ancients believed that the gods walked among them. And while I know that Sarah wasn't a god, though she might have been a goddess, she was a giant, and she walked among us. I have been at Petaluma High since 1988, and for me, Sarah has served as the archetypical teacher of excellence. Last year, Sarah was voted Teacher of the Year, but in reality, Sarah was Teacher of the Year every single day. She was the French department and the sole designer of 5 years of French. Pay no attention to the fact that high school only has 4 years. Sarah worked wonders. Sarah didn't just teach, though she did refine teaching to the highest art. She brought private school values to public education. She created students, ideal students. Sarah would take whatever raw material came into her class, and she would mold it. Sarah's students came to know excellence, came to learn how to achieve excellence, and how to help others achieve excellence. Her students forever carry the stamp of Madame. And those students, I figure there are easily over 4,000 of them, are now scattered the world over, seeding her lessons. So, a challenge to them, one of them. I would like to see them create a graphic novel about Super Sarah. The title's easy, Madame. And just the graphics of the title would instill deep awe. Her main magic power, of course, would be those shoes that could tap out messages, instructions, and warnings from afar. Best have your homework done. Best be prepared to do your finest work today in class. Best be prepared to push yourself beyond your perceived limits. Okay, where am I? Her other secret power would be her will of iron, which could turn any student and faculty member towards her vision. As a former student just wrote me, she convinced an entire generation of students that her subject was the most important thing in the world to maintain as a part of their lives. That is a rare gift indeed. But then there is her most potent magic, her secret magic, her big heart. The heart that never, never gave up on a student, never, ever forgot a student. The heart that never let up because she cared so much. Sarah was awesome, and I mean that in the biblical sense of the word. I was a little afraid of her. She was so much the consummate professional, so much the ideal teacher, so indefatigable, so anything is possible, so Madame.
Hi everyone. I'm going to keep this short and sweet and try to pull it together. I've spent this past week grappling with the death of a personal hero and mentor. As the emotions spill out, I found myself smiling at the countless moments that I shared as a high schooler and beyond with Madame. I'm going to take this short time to honor a woman who ignited a passion in me and countless other students. We find ourselves in moments like these asking the unanswerable question, why did she die? But thanks to a friend of Sarah's who I spoke to earlier this week, I don't ask myself that question. I ask, why did she live? Madame lived to inspire, to encourage, to help us realize our potential, and to reveal the best in each individual. She taught because she carried a deeply developed vision, and every day she taught us confidence, discipline, an appreciation for beauty, be it painting, sculpture, film, food, music, or literature. She helped us develop a finer taste for beautiful creation. She gave me my first taste of adventure and travel, which has been a formative experience for me. With such a sudden loss of someone so inspirational to us daily, we feel confused and hurt, intangibly close to the fragility and preciousness of life, and this scares us. But don't be afraid. Be like Madame and wake up every morning as if today is the most precious day of your life. Treat yourself and the ones you love with respect, honesty, and integrity every day. Madame's legacy will live on for generations as the lessons she taught me will be shared with my own children one day. And this dreadful experience has taught me to honor every breathing moment and recognize that everyone who crosses my path, be it a crowd of sorrows or a beam of light, is here to teach me a lesson and offer me a gift. Thank you, Madame, for your gift. Thank you for teaching me to love myself, to trust myself, to speak French with ease, and thank you for introducing me to one of many cultures that have rounded me, inspired me, and taught me deeply about myself, just as you did. My heart is with you, Jordan, Cole, and Greg, and thank you for welcoming me into your lives. Sarah will forever be my mentor and most esteemed teacher. Madame, je t'aime et tu vas me manquer pour toujours. Merci. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Cecilia Payne.
And I'm Erin Gores, and we were co-captains this year, and we're here representing the girls' tennis team.
Once, a girl from the opposing team leaned in and asked me, "Do you really call your coach Madame?" And I just said yes, like it was the most normal thing in the world. And thinking back on it, there's nothing else that we could have called her. That is just what she was to us, Madame. Within that name was a role model who pushed and inspired each and every one of us. She was passionate about tennis, completely committed to our team, goofy, demanding, sometimes intimidating, and always encouraging. She could do more crunches than each of us, all the while reminding us to keep it sexy, and could give even the best players a run for their money. Madame's fashion sense continued on court. She never let us get a purple uniform, claiming that purple just wasn't a tennis color. And we even had a best dress category for the end of season awards. As a team, we were not at all surprised to discover that even her hair ties were Chanel.
Madame brought us all together. We are girls from different social cliques, ages, and interests, but through tennis, we were able to come together to work towards a common goal, and this can be entirely attributed to Madame. She made a point to get to know each of us separately and was extremely deliberate and thoughtful about putting each of us into positions in which we could realize our potential as tennis players. She would come to us every day, zooming down the block before calling, "Gather around, my girls," and from that point on, it was about tennis. No matter the day she had or the recent Culture Points disasters she had dealt with, upon stepping inside the gates of the tennis courts, Madame focused her potent energy into our team, our strokes, and our upcoming matches. She led by example, and hers was that through determination, poise, and unwavering appreciation for tennis, we could all amount to great players. Hidden within these lessons, Madame embedded a deeper lesson about life. The very same characteristics that help win tennis matches can transcend into the way you conduct yourself every day. Commitment to something you love, belief in oneself, diplomacy no matter the circumstance, and an overall enjoyment of the present. These are all things Madame exemplified, and they are the reasons everyone has come to celebrate her life here today.
We feel blessed to have had the wonderful, powerful, and funny Madame as a coach, and we will take the lessons she has taught us with us for the rest of our lives.
Thank you, Madame. Love your girls.
So we are members of the French Club. We're actually all four of us co-presidents, but we are also members of Madame's French 4-5 class this year. And I'll begin by saying a quote from one of her favorite books, Le Petit Prince. Voici mon secret, il est très simple. On ne voit bien qu'avec le cœur. L'essentiel est invisible pour les yeux. The translation is, here is my secret. It is very simple. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. Madame had an amazing way of seeing with the heart, seeing everybody who they were and who they could become, the best of who they could become.
Bonjour class, bonjour madame. A typical day in C8, not just for our French 4 or 5 class, but for all the classes Madame has taught during her years at PHS. She was the most difficult person to please, but when you succeeded, it was the best feeling. And although she may have terrified us, there isn't a day that goes by we are not better people because of it. We fell in love. We fell in love with her class, with France, with the beautiful language, but most importantly, we fell in love with Madame's striving, ambition, and her passion for the beauty of French, with hundreds and hundreds of students throughout the years. Madame was someone who changed lives, who changed her students and how they saw themselves. She made us want to be better and strive for success in our lives. She is one in a million, and one of those people who you can never forget. She was our heroine, a ferocious tigress who expected nothing but excellence from everyone she met. She could be frightening, but at the same time, the most highly respected and always loved. She had an untouchable power and with strength and passion that lit her up and which she patched down to everyone who was lucky enough to have her in her lives. Sometimes her expectation had us staying up until 3 or 4 in the morning to make sure that our projects were more than perfect. But in the end, it helped shape the wonderful students she wanted us to be. Other times we would have panic attacks before our French presentations because there is that feeling we did something wrong, which we did. Or we didn't meet Madame's standards. But at the end of the day, we had done PowerPoints, we have translated songs, and we have written essays, all in French. And honestly, it feels like there is nothing we can't do. She is the reason for our successes, and we own her for everything in the world.
So this next quote that I'm going to read is a quote Madame really, kind of was the epitome of Madame and what she tried to live her life with. So it's Le bonheur n'est pas le but, mais le moyen de la vie. And that is, happiness is not the goal, but the means of life. And that was by Paul Claudel. So that's just a little quote.
Okay. As we all know, it was her heels that made the impact the first day you met Madame. Then it was her ability to be fashionable and teach not just French, but everything she had learned in her life. And to top it all off, she had memorized our English names as well as our new French names by the second week of school. She was our friend, our mentor, role model, teacher, comedian, mother, fashion model, warrior, and our little piece of France in little Petaluma. She was simply amazing. Every lunch and tutorial, there would be a line to speak to her, to get her words of wisdom for the day. She started the Ashland trip, the French tutoring program, and the France travel abroad program. She did everything for us because she knew we were capable of it all. In reality, she knew us better than we even knew ourselves. She had more faith in us than anyone we will ever meet, and she never gave up on a student. The best moments were when she praised your work in front of the whole class, because all we ever wanted was to make her proud. If there was only time to do one homework assignment, you only did Madame's. It was code that all French students lived by. She prepared us for life, and that is the most precious gift that she could have ever given us. And whether you had Madame for just one semester or 4 years, she has taught us French in a way that no teacher can replicate. Thank you for everything, Madame. Merci pour tout, Madame. Nous vous aimerons toujours. Thank you.
Hello. All 5 of us are also from Madame's French 4-5 class, and I just wanted to wrap things up with talking about the book The Little Prince, which was also one of Madame's favorite books. She read it every year with French 3, and if you haven't read it, it's about a little man who comes to Earth and teaches the narrator all of these really important lessons. And Madame always found some way to connect these lessons with everything else we learned. And at the end of the book, the little prince has to leave, and he tells the narrator that he will look dead, but that won't be true, and he just has to go back to his planet. He tells him that he will always be in the stars. He has to leave his body there, and the narrator can't go with him. At the very end, there's 2 pictures. One of them is right over there, and it's on the back of your programs. And there's that picture with the little prince right before he leaves the earth, and then the very last picture is on the back of your programs. And there's a little passage under it that whenever Madame read it, she would tear up, and we'll read that for you, first in French, because Madame would be very disappointed if we didn't, and then in English.
Ça c'est pour moi le plus beau et le plus triste passage du monde. C'est le même paysage que celui de la plage précédente. Mais je le désigne une fois encore pour bien vous le montrer. C'est ici que le petit prince apparut sur terre, puis disparut.
Regardez attentivement ce paysage afin d'être sûr de le reconnaître. Si vous voyagez un jour en Afrique, dans le désert, et s'il vous arrive de passer par là, je vous en supplie, ne vous pressez pas. Attendez un peu, juste sous l'étoile. Si alors un enfant vient à vous, s'il rit, s'il a des cheveux d'or, s'il ne répond pas quand on l'interroge, vous devinerez bien qui il est. Alors, soyez gentil, ne me laissez pas tellement triste. Écrivez-moi vite qu'il est revenu.
This is to me the loveliest and saddest landscape in the world. It is the same as that on the preceding page, but I have drawn it again to impress it on your memory. It is here that the little prince appeared on earth and disappeared.
Look at it carefully so that you'll be sure to recognize it in case you travel someday to the African desert. And if you should come upon this spot, please do not hurry on. Wait for a time exactly under the star. Then, if a little man appears who laughs, who has golden hair, and who refuses to answer questions, you will know who he is. If this should happen, please comfort me. Send me word that he has come back.
On behalf of everyone here, the family and our Petaluma school community, thank you so much for coming, and we will continue to honor her every day of our lives. Thank you.